So the law hasn't changed. The facts have not changed. The policy of the division is reflected in the complaint and the relief sought. What changed?
I can't answer that. I don't know. I truly don't know.
It is accurate to say that the division's policy can be found in the complaints it files, correct? So, so it's accurate to say, as I read this complaint, that articulates the department's policy.
That's a great point. That's a great point. In 2001, before the inauguration, the department filed the case of United States versus Charleston County, South Carolina. Excuse me. It was a redistricting case alleging that Charleston County had dilutive elections at large for districts for county council. Chris Coates actually brought that case too. That case was filed before the Bush inauguration with some concern that the Bush administration would reverse course and dismiss the case. Well, thankfully, the Bush administration took office and was absolutely committed to going forward with that case. And the department won that case. Chris Coates won that case along with some other very, excuse me, along with some other very able attorneys working on the case. In hindsight, the fears that the case would be dismissed that were expressed by people in the Reno Justice Department proved not to be true. That the Ashcroft Justice Department did not dismiss that case and fought vigorously and won the case. Fast forward. In this particular instance, based in some part on the Charleston precedent, you have a different outcome. So that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Commissioner Harriet.
Okay, I guess I just want to do some cleanup since I'm either the last or second to the last here. Make sure that some of the things that you've mentioned here, that we've gotten out everything. You started to talk about attorneys who are no longer with the department who might corroborate your view of the culture of the voting section.
That's correct.
But I don't think you ever got that out.
Well, I said that there are, and I'd be happy to provide the names to your counsel, but I'm certainly not going to do that until I have a chance to talk to them and make sure they're okay with it.
Well, then I would request that you do that.
Okay.
Then you mentioned a second ago, and this is not the first time I think, you said we had evidence that this wasn't necessarily just an isolated incident. Could you run me by exactly the evidence you're talking about at this point?
Let me stress, evidence was, if I said evidence in the record, that's not what I should have said. I said indications.
You said indications the first time, but I think you actually said evidence the second time, unless I misheard you. But I understand what you mean. What were these indications?
The indications were accounts from other parts of the country that this behavior may have been going on prior to the general election and may have been going on in the primaries with Hillary Clinton supporters as the victims.
And where did the accounts come from?
Publicly available information was the basis of these particular indications. I'm not saying that they...
We're talking about press reports, something on the internet?
Yeah. I'm not saying that they carried a great deal of weight. I'm not saying that I would have gone to trial on what was out there. What I am saying is if we had time to fully investigate it, we would have gotten to the bottom of it.
Do you remember exactly what kind of indications you're talking about, or is this sort of...
Same sort of Nation of Islam, New Black Panther thugs.
Their websites?
No, people at the polls.
People at the polls.
Correct.
Okay. People at the polls saying that they had seen this?
There's a group of Hillary Clinton supporters. I think they call themselves Pumas. I don't know enough about, but they're...
Sure, it's not Cougars. That wouldn't be the popular word these days.
There are indications that this was occurring in the primaries. Thankfully, we still have a free press, I'm told, that maybe they can look into this and get to the bottom of it. Because certainly it's not going to happen now.
Is there anything, well, let me backtrack a little bit. I take it you've looked at the publicly available documents that the Commission has produced so far and put into the record, the testimony.
I haven't.
You have not looked at anything?
No, I mean, some of them I have.
You have looked at some of the depositions?
Yeah, but, I mean, today, I looked at the Kristen Clark deposition, because if you want to talk about some problems about veracity, that's where to start.
Okay, well, let me ask that question. I want to talk about some problems that have to do with veracity. What is it about the Kristen Clark deposition that causes you to say that?
Yeah. In that deposition, it's sort of like, and Rich will kick me if I get this wrong, is it Peter denying Jesus 3 times? Yeah. Peter denies Jesus 3 times. Kristen Clark denies Chris Coates 6. And in those emails that go back and forth between Clark and people inside the department, they're very angry at CC. And Clark denies in that deposition, I think 6 times, that she knows who CC is. They used to travel together. They worked with each other. It's perfectly apparent to anybody who knows the reality of what was going on in the voting section that that is not truthful testimony.
How long did she work with Chris
You're
Coates?
going to have Chris Coates here and tell him.
Is there anyone else at the department with the initial CC
Negative.
that you can think of?
Nobody.
Okay. Anything else in that deposition that caused you concern?
Well, that's the one that comes first to mind. I seem to remember something else, but it may be the denial that she was lobbying the department. I mean, look, that's a question of competing witnesses. What does one witness say? What does Clark say? I can't answer that. You all are going to have to do that. I can't do that.
Do you have any personal knowledge of this?
Coates does.
You do not,
I do only what Coates told me.
Okay. What did Coates tell you?
That it was reported to him that Kristen Clark was talking to an attorney in the voting section and asking when the case was going to be dismissed, well in advance of that timeline up there.
Mm-hmm. Did anyone else talk to you about it?
Perhaps Popper, but I don't remember. Again, you need to call them up to tell about it.
Okay. Any other inaccuracies or questionable items that you've seen in the record that we have created so far?
Not that I've seen, no.
Okay.
That doesn't mean I reviewed the whole record. I just
Yes, I understand that. I think that's all I've got.
Okay, before I start, I'd like to poll the commissioners to see if there is a need for a third round.
I'd kind of like one,
Okay,
if possible.
sure. Okay, I just have a few questions for you. We have, throughout our exchanges and throughout your testimony, you have mentioned Coates. It is obvious that he is a very important witness. Shortly after this controversy took place, he was transferred to South Carolina. He's still on the payroll at the Department of Justice.
Yes, sir.
He is currently working in South Carolina.
Yes, sir.
Are you aware that the Commission's jurisdiction in terms of its subpoena power does not go past 100 miles?
I did not know that.
Are you aware of any information that would support the proposition that that transfer took place in part to put him beyond the reach of the Commission's subpoena power?
That would be a personnel matter about Chris, and I would not be privy to that sort of thing anyhow.
Okay. Mr. Coates, the working environment during this controversy, I imagine that things became difficult for him at the Department of Justice.
That's an understatement.
Okay, and this atmosphere, the environment in which he worked during this period, was that in part the cause for his willingness to transfer to South Carolina?
Look, I don't want to speak for him. He's a dear friend. He's under subpoena. He can answer these questions directly to this commission.
I understand. Thank you. Okay, Commissioner Gaziano.
Sorry to keep you and perhaps others. You were asked by the General Counsel whether you were personally involved in the Pima County, Arizona suit, and you said that you were not on that trial team. Am I accurate in thinking that Coates would provide the best evidence of that?